That was an interesting choice of soundtrack.
Yeah, I can't. We try to expand this, I guess, the Democratic Party, I guess, try to get them Trump supporters with that music.
Yeah, that was the song to do it.
You know, that is something that they really are going to try to do. Former Ohio Governor John Kasich, Republican, also presidential candidate, is going to speak this week in an effort to get, I guess, Republicans to join Team Biden and not vote for Trump. There's going to be other Republicans speaking throughout this. Mm-hmm. That's been something that people are frustrated by, because there's a lot of conflict. You can't get everything right? But John Kasich is going to get a good amount of time. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to get 1 minute. George Floyd's family is going to get time, which is great. And then you have to juxtapose that with someone who has defended stop and frisk up until the very last minute. Former Mayor Bloomberg is going to also get time. It's going to get much more than a minute also.
Well, Brooke, if I may, I think the challenge of the Democratic Party is you have all these disparate factions that you have to give some time to and appease, because unlike the Republican Party, there's genuine intellectual, ideological, racial, sexual, gender diversity. But here's the thing about Kasich, and you guys tell me if you agree with this. I'm not justifying the time that they gave him as opposed to anybody else's time, but there is nothing like somebody from your own family beating up on you. And Kasich's job tonight is to wail the hell out of Donald Trump. And it sounds much more plausible and believable because he's a Republican.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm actually here for that. I do know that the Latino community, like some folks are a little frustrated. I wore my Mexico shirt tonight. I'm gonna have a different message every night of the week, because I need the Latinos to not take this as a slight, because I know it's like a 60-30 thing with the Latino community right now. I think there's like 32% support going to Donald Trump. I'm gonna need y'all to come over to this side. But like, just because AOC is not giving a lot of time, it does not mean the needs and wants of the Latino community has ever been overlooked with the Democratic Convention, the Democratic Party. I still am mind blown when I of a Republican voting Latinos, when Trump's entire campaign kicked off insulting your entire demographic, your whole community.
That was the first thing that got major attention. You're right. It was the very first thing.
So what's it going to take?
Yeah.
I agree. And I agree with you too, Clyde. I agree with all you guys. And to speak to this package that we're looking at that kind of encompasses, I joke about this song being bananas. It's very Mississippi burning, but I do think that it is genius to be very inclusive when we're talking about all people, because we're in a crisis. Mm-hmm. So we really don't have time to be picking and choosing who needs to vote. Every single type of person that has breath in their body over 18 years old needs to be at the polls voting against Donald Trump, in my opinion. I know that that's not going to happen, but if we're going to, I think that that's what this package and this convention, as so far, it looks to be trying to go for the people. I see a lot of the theme of what I'm seeing is very people oriented, no matter what race, creed, color, belief, or whatever, because we are all being affected across the board by the things that are going on by this particular president. He could be a liberal. The way that he has behaved has been outrageous. I mean, abominable. So he needs to go, and we need to try to get everybody.
But is that a slight then? Giving AOC only a minute, Julian Castro gets no time. Does the party leaders, are they getting it wrong a little bit as far as like who the people includes, or are people in line just complaining?
Well, we love to complain. We do real good at complaining.
That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, yes, you, in a perfect world, you'd like to give everybody equal time to have the opportunity to express what it is they need and want to say. But this isn't a perfect world, and you have time constraints. And
speaking of time constraints, let's go back to the DNC, because the mayor of DC, Muriel Bowser, is speaking right now. I'm going to jump back.
Oh, wow.
American who believes in justice. But I said enough for another reason too. I have a 2-year-old daughter, And I want her to grow up in an America where she's not scared to walk to the store, an America where she's safe behind the doors of her own home, an America where the president doesn't fan the flames of racism and looks out for all of us. So I created Black Lives Matter Plaza right behind me as a place where we could come together to say enough. And by coming together this November to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we will say next, because we can't just paint those words behind me. We can't just say those words. We have to live those words. We have to undo the laws and systems that have codified racism for far too long. But we have to do something too. Each and every one of us challenge our own biases. If we see something, do something. Together, we can turn this reckoning into a reimagining of a nation where we the people means all the people. There were a few people who stood on this very balcony as thousands of people peacefully protested in this city. One was our next vice president, my sister, Kamala Harris. The others were members of George Floyd's family, who I'm honored to introduce now.
My brother George was selfless. He always made sacrifices for his family, friends, and even complete strangers. George had a giving spirit, a spirit that has shown up on streets around our nation and around the world. People of all races, all ages, all genders, all backgrounds, peacefully protesting in the name of love and unity. It's a fitting legacy for our brother, but George should be alive today. Breonna Taylor should be alive today. Ahmaud Arbery should be alive today. Eric Garner should be alive today. Stephon Clark, Tatiana Jefferson, Sandra Bland, they should all be alive today. So it's up to us to carry on the fight for justice. Our actions will be their legacies. We must always find ourselves in what John Lewis called good trouble. For the names we do not know, the faces we'll never see, those who can't mourn because their murders didn't go viral. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor George and the many other souls we lost to hate and injustice. And when this moment ends, let's make sure we never stop saying their names.
I want to get everyone's thoughts on the family of George Floyd speaking. I think obviously it's great that they get to bring national attention to what happened, but it's also awful that, this family has been forced into this spotlight for a reason that, nobody wants. They don't want to be there. And when they were talking, I couldn't help but thinking, like, there's so many names. There are so many names, and those are just the ones we know.
It's a blessing and a curse when they are made, when they're known nationally, you know what I mean? Because on the blessing side now, we are aware of it, we can fight for it, we can, try to get justice. But on the negative, the way that some people choose to just, make the victim the enemy, you know what I mean? And picking the man apart. And if he wasn't perfect, it's like almost like the life wasn't justified to be fought for. And that's something that happens when we have a murder victim. The person, if they weren't perfect and have straight A's and top of their class and never got in trouble and never smoked weed and never did anything, then they're worthy of fighting for. But if they've had anything that, any mistakes in their lives, this country tends to demonize them. And, oh, look at him, he was a gangster. Look at this video we found, or this picture where he smoked weed. And I hate that they tried to do that with George Floyd. But even with that, the country still got behind this. The majority of the people were on the side of right and were fighting for his life. It doesn't have to be a perfect life to be fought for. And I think that's the important message there. And that's something that has changed, because we saw just, years back with Trayvon, it wasn't the case with him. They found every reason for him and Mike Brown to deserve what happened to them.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that the DNC found it fit to be able to insert something like that into, to have such a highlighted moment where his family spoke on it, because it reminds us of why this entire campaign is so important, why this election is so important. It's more than just the people. I mean, the racism that we're dealing with has not been addressed. It has to be the forefront. You know, the social injustice has to be the forefront when the next president gets into office, no matter who that is. I mean, it has to be Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, please God. But it has to be on the agenda, like first, like top 5. Like it has to be number 1, actually, because we can't continue this way. We're stressing out a nation behind this. It has to be addressed.
The 46th president. It was a decision I made with my feet firmly planted in this community. This community, where 80% of African Americans in this country can claim an ancestor who arrived on these shores in bondage, a few blocks from here over at Gaston's Wharf. This community that is still healing from the wounds we received when the white supremacists entered Emmanuel AME Church and murdered 9 Black parishioners as they studied the Bible together. The ground beneath our feet is seeded with pain that is both old and new. But from that soil, we always find a way to grow together. Earlier this summer, the city of Charleston removed a statue honoring John C. Calhoun, an honored advocate of slavery. And construction is underway on the International African American Museum at Gadsden's Wharf. Much like the country as a whole, we are stepping out from the shadows of our past and beginning to lay the groundwork for a more just future. It won't be easy. We can only succeed if we move forward together. So we will need a president who sees unifying people as a requirement of the job, a president who understands the true meaning of community and how to build it through trust and humility. And with so many families experiencing loss in this pandemic, lost jobs, lost loved ones, and lost confidence in the president to keep us safe, we need a president who understands both profound loss and what it takes to bounce back. But more important than his firsthand experience with loss and hardship is his ability to translate that perspective into policy and solutions, and prioritize hard-working people and persistent poverty counties over partisan politics or personal gain. That's why I stand with Joe, and why he will always be an adopted son of South Carolina. Joe Biden is as good a man as he is a leader. I have said before and wish to reiterate tonight, we know Joe, but more importantly, Joe knows us.
I am Kevin. I do a lot of things in life, but the thing I'm most proud of is I am a TAPS military mentor, and that's how I spend the majority of my time post-Marine Corps.
Building memories like the ones we build together is the single best thing I do with my time. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your lives and sharing the journeys for the past decade.
We've got about...
Let me just say this very quickly. Whatever the blueprint is for this DNC convention, whoever put this together, I hope they're going with Joe into the White House. Because this package is, when I tell you this is so lit, what we're watching, this is so historical. I am just so engaged by all the different types of people and commentary. And I love how he merged government with ordinary person when he had Gwen with Lightfoot and everybody in the same NAACP president. You know, that's basically what Joe is getting ready to do. That's what Joe and Kamala are getting ready to do. Get the people as close to government to be able to work together as possible. That's what I'm getting from this.
I agree with you, Celine. And also I want to say, speaking of going into the White House, I think the damn, whip, James Clyburn deserves a cabinet position or some kind of extremely important position, because if it wasn't for him, when he endorsed Joe Biden, the entire momentum changed. Joe Biden was struggling before that moment. Before Carolina. That's when Joe Biden was like, what, 5th, 3rd? It was like not looking good for Floyd. And then when James Clyburn gave him a stamp of approval, it's been uphill ever since. So I'm just saying, James Clyburn.
And Brooke, you know, the line that he used that Representative Clyburn used at the end of his speech is an important line because it sets the context for why African Americans specifically were able to support him. Joe knows us. We know Joe, but more importantly, Joe knows us. And here's something to think about. Joe Biden has never run for a national office without a Black person on the ticket. He's never done it.
That's deep.
He was the vice president to the first Black president, and now he is running alongside the first Black vice presidential nominee.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hope that fact isn't lost on folks that are skeptical. You know what I mean? So
it was not lost in South Carolina.
That's right.
Facts.
Okay.
Facts.
The women got it all the way together in South Carolina. Black women.
Ladies, can I say something that I want to make sure, and you guys tell me how you respond to this?
Oh, toss us to Cuomo. He's coming right now.
That's your boy, Sean.
And have gone.
Kristen Urquiza, they're talking about her dad, now one of the 170,000 Americans that have died during this pandemic because of COVID-19. This DNC, on one hand, obviously it's going to get voters excited, right? On the other hand, it is going to be a big pushback against Donald Trump and what he's doing or not doing. I think we're going to hear obviously much more about COVID-19 and what needs to be done. And I think we're going to hear a little bit about the post office. I think I can imagine that this week that's going to be a big topic that's touched on, things that people care about. This is one of the number one things right now, COVID-19. People want somebody in office who's going to change the environment that we're in right now.
Very powerful that she mentioned that her dad was a Trump supporter and followed what Trump said and did not wear the mask, did not take it seriously because at the leadership of the current president. I think that's a really powerful thing. So Donald Trump is actively, by his actions, getting people killed.
And COVID-19 made this election a referendum on Trump and not a choice between Biden and Trump. Single-handedly, the pandemic exposed the deficiencies in his character, in his leadership, and his capacity to choose and surround himself with competent people. You're absolutely right, Brooke and Claudia, because this pandemic has exposed this country on a multiplicity of levels. And again, people are going to say what they want to say about the convention, about the Democrats, about Kamala, about Joe, but this pandemic has made it clear that if you don't get new leadership in the White House, hundreds of thousands of more people are going to die. It is life and death.
And I agree with you, Sean, wholeheartedly. And I also feel like, when we think about the American people and COVID-19, and we think about what we've gone through this year, all of the uncertainties that we see across social media with people not wanting to vote, not wanting to participate, I would just say this to them. If we were in a situation where we had more candidates, and it was more people running for president, then maybe that would be a factor. But we're in a situation where there's only two qualified, but not even qualified. There's only one qualified party at this point, and it is really detrimental. Lives will be lost, like you guys are saying. And we really have to take this seriously. And to piggyback of what Brooke said, with the mailing system, just think about it this way. People who are uncertain about voting, if voting wasn't a factor, then why are we trying to suppress it? Why are they trying to suppress it?
That's rich.
Think about that. They've been trying to suppress voters forever, for decades. Rich. So if voting doesn't matter, then why are they always trying to stop people from doing it? Voting should be as easy as the census. It should be as easy as filling and mandatory as a census. We have to fill out the census and we do it, we mail it in, it's no problem. We should be able to, voting should be just as easy as that, but it's not. Because there is something to voting. You have to exercise this right because, like I said earlier, and to piggyback what you guys are saying, it is a life or death situation. And there's only one ticket at this point that can eradicate all of this foolishness.
You are absolutely right. We are literally, if I may, we are literally standing on the Titanic. Yes. And it's like a lifeboat comes along and you don't want to get on it because the driver of the boat owes you $5 and you don't like the color of the boat. You better get your ass on the boat and figure out how you get your money and change the color of the boat once you get to the shore.
Okay.
Can I point out something real quick? This is Donald Trump's first term with the threat of not being able to be reelected, which usually keeps a president in check. Can you imagine if he got voted back in again, the damage he could do with no consequences to any of his actions? Right now, he's half-assed behaving in his world because he wants to get reelected. This is the best he'll ever act, ladies and gentlemen. This is the best he'll ever do for the other side. The fact that he retweeted the other day a tweet that said, "Let the Democratic cities rot," shows you he does not give a damn about you if you're not supporting him. He does not give a damn about you if you're not supporting him. I see a comment in the chat about same song and dance all the time. They just tell us what they want us to hear, but and that's it. And there's no action. What are they doing for Black people? Black lives are here at stake as well, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have time. We don't have time for a protest vote against Joe Biden because we're supporting Donald Trump. I can't do it again, y'all. I can't.
I'm with you.
I mean, to Selena's point, we did have that option where there were so many different people. It was the primary. It felt like there were 1,500 options, so many different options. And this was the outcome. The majority of people chose this outcome. Yes. We all had the option to vote for. There were a plethora of different people that you could have chose. This was the outcome. And there's almost, in being frustrated with that, you don't have to be totally happy with it. That's okay. Yeah. But you can't discount that the majority of voters chose this outcome.
Call it democracy.
And Brooke and everybody, there's been a lot of criticism from the Black community in the beginning with Kamala. We didn't choose her, but this time around it's a little different. We have a viewer comment from Yolanda W. who says, reparations is never a topic, sad. I just want to let everyone know, Bernie Sanders was firmly against reparations. And guess who was for reparations? Kamala Harris. So when you're out there attacking this woman for not being Black enough in this purity test, Kamala Harris has in fact been closer to some of your faves on that topic. If that's a topic that's a factor to you, she's at least open to having that conversation.
Yeah.
Claudia, I think people, it's amazing to me how people just traffic in negativity. We just love to be right about something being wrong. And I believe if Joe Biden had selected Jesus Christ to be his running mate, people would have had a problem with the fact that he was mean to the Syrophoenician woman.
Right, he didn't wear the right robe down to the crucifixion. They would have been like, if his color of his robe wasn't right.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing? Kamala Harris, every Black man watching has to support Kamala Harris, in my opinion. I'll tell you why. Because Black women supported Barack Obama. In spite of whatever it is they thought about him or reservations about him, they supported him. They had critiques, but they gave him their support. As Black men, we have a responsibility to support this sister. She's our wife, she's our daughter, she's our sister, she's our mother, she's our grandmother. And if they could support us, then we have to do it for them. No, you don't have to agree with everything or like everything. That's not the point. The point is, one of the things people love about the minister is that he loves Black people and he loves Black people unconditionally. And if you love Black people, then go ahead and love Black people, even when you disagree with them.
Yeah.
What do you say? What do you all say to the people that criticize her and say, well, she's not African American because she has Jamaican roots and her mother is Asian?
Since when are Jamaican people not Black? Like, since when? I have never heard that before.
Thank you, Brooke.
It's ridiculous.
I've never heard anybody say Jamaican people are not Black. But now all of a sudden it started happening an hour.
Bob Marley's not Black. Marcus Garvey's not Black.
And I remember
there's so many people you don't know are Jamaican that are Jamaican. They're like, since when are Jamaican people not Black people? What? And she can be both. Her personhood is proof that you can be both. She is allowed to be proud that she's Asian and that she's also Black. You can be both. She actually is both.
Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we cannibalize ourselves in this? We do this.
And anyway, first of all, her mother's Indian. Okay.
Well, Indians in Asia.
And I'm just saying, I know that's the territory, but her mother is Indian. Her father is Jamaican. Okay, come on, y'all. These people need to have several seats. This woman is a whole Black woman. Stop it. Have several coliseums of seats and just sit in every last one of them. I'm sick of it. This has absolutely nothing to do at the end of the day with her being qualified for the position. Yes. Let's just go with qualifications alone. Nobody said anything to Baloney Face that's in office right now. I don't remember him holding any seats other than down to the apprentice before he became a president of the United States. No one, he had a whole fake university. No one questioned his competence. But the only thing that qualified him, in my opinion, was the color of his skin and the status of his checkbook, which we still have yet to see.
Selena, do you know what color his skin actually is?
Because it looks like it's pink. I don't know, girl. It fluctuates.
But you know what? Also, Selena, if I may, we have to always ask: would we be asking these questions if Kamala Harris was a black man? If she was a man, these things would. I mean, it happened a little bit with Obama, but not to the degree that it's happening now. And it is a tragedy to me. And you guys tell me if you agree or disagree. It's a tragedy to me how much sexism permeates in people who claim to be woke.
Let me bring this other point up. Judge Joe Brown, which I am a fan of, was on his Twitter retweeting all these horrible things about Kamala Harris's, I got my East Coast, that's how I say her name, Kamala Harris's past. You know, there was a whole thing about how she was the mistress of Willie Brown. Well, I looked into that. And he was separated from his wife for a very long time when they were dealing with each other. You know, but we have a whole president in office that has 3 baby mamas and countless affairs, paying up porn stars. Whenever males, black men included, or they don't get the same level of scrutiny. With the woman, they're ready to put that scarlet, that letter right on her forehead, and that's that. And it's just amazing the difference. And I do believe that Dr. Shauna is because she's a woman, and it's a whole different standard. Well, this woman damn near has to be Mother Teresa for it to be okay for some people to get on board. I need to get with the program and knock it off with the double standard.
And I mean, it's very simple. At least she's not outwardly saying that she's grabbing men by their crotch. We have a president who outwardly said, just grab the women, the people by their crotch, and everything is going to be fine. That was like a solution-based objective that he pushed on to the world. Then he told the people, listen, this is not rocket science, okay? Kamala Harris questioning is overqualified. She's overqualified for the position, and I definitely believe that it's sexism, but it's racism first, because even if it was a black man, they wore Barack Obama to the low, and when he won, they wore Michelle Obama to the even lower. So it's just the color of our skin is our sin. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, questioning whether a black woman has the ability, if she is American enough to run for elected office, it's a white supremacist tactic, and there is no need to jump in on that and help out with that. I mean, that's just exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I'm just, I'm looking at some of the comments and viewers who are asking about her locking up black men and locking up, look, that was her job. Her job was to be the attorney general. Her job was to be the district attorney. Her job was to deal and to adjudicate the laws. I had someone on my show earlier before we did this who said very simply, you can't judge someone who is in those jobs by the same criteria you judge people who make the laws, And so if you're a district attorney, Brooke, you tell me if I get this right or not. If you're a district attorney, you do have the ability to decide to a certain degree who gets charged and who doesn't, but you don't have the ability, or it's not lawful for you to decide that nobody gets charged.
I mean, I think people wanted her to be a little bit more progressive when they look back on her record, and we look at where we are now, right? We've got what's happening in Dallas, what's happening in Philadelphia. We've got these super progressive district attorneys. What's happening in New York City? What's happening even in LA? That's what people want. People wanted her to be, when they look back, they're disappointed that it doesn't look like now. And yes, she did have the ability to make different changes, to be much more progressive.
Can I interrupt you real quick? We got to throw.
Amy Klobuchar also was, at least at the beginning, candidate to potentially be VP. That decision went to Kamala Harris, obviously. But what are our thoughts on Senator Klobuchar?
Well, that would have been an interesting choice, because her crime history is not very squeaky clean either. So that would have been quite phenomenal if he would have chosen her. And the point I'm trying to make is that, we're dealing with the apples and oranges. We're majoring in the minors when it comes to Kamala Harris and being the pick for vice president. You know, we talk about a lot of the negative things that she's done, but we don't talk about any of the positive things, like her program that she implemented in 2005. I think it was called the Back on Track program, where it was for leniency on first-time offenders. It was an entire program to try to implement people back into the community for small offenses, you know, trying to do something for prison reform. And I encourage people to watch the conversation, the one-on-one conversation that she had with Angela Rye, which was quite riveting. Angela did not, she took all the punches that she needed to, and she actually answered all of the questions that people are talking about, that people are inquiring, and she answered them out of her mouth, which was good enough for me, because they talked about the evolution of politicians and that nobody is, you know, perfect. There's not a perfect politician that I've ever laid eyes on. And actually, you know, we talk about this crime history that she has. Well, what about the crime bill? Let's go there, because that was the thing that got Hillary Clinton. You know, that's the thing that stopped her from being elected. One of the things, emails and crime bills, you know, things like that. We bring that stuff up about crime and putting Black men in jail, because the crime bill put Black men in jail for long periods of time. But guess what? Everybody voted on that crime bill. Everybody voted for it. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, the National Black Caucus voted for that crime bill. But we don't talk about all of that. We're too focused on this one Black woman that did her little stuff over in California. The crime bill was comprehensive to the entire justice system. So politicians make mistakes in the past. They're going to make mistakes in the present, and they're going to make mistakes in the future. But we have to focus on who can we put in office and hold accountable, because the work doesn't stop. It doesn't stop at just voting. You have to hold people accountable in office. And that's some of the stuff that we're not doing as citizens. We've been very lax and just picking people and then pointing fingers when things don't go the way that we wanted it, that we voted. So we have to do better too. And I'm not saying she's perfect and squeaky clean, but it's very clear to me that her and Joe Biden are the better choice, or it's Donald Trump and Mike Pence.
I like that you bring up the crime bill and who has to answer for it, because a lot of people have to answer for that. And I think that a lot of the excuses we've been hearing about support of that is, well, I was really voting for the Violence Against Women's Act. And that's important to me, that statement, because the crime bill didn't just disproportionately harm Black men, it also harms Black women.
Yes.
So when Black women are being harmed over here, which women are being protected in the Violence Against Women's Act?
Absolutely.
It's not like the three of us.
And Kamala has been vocal about protecting us. She has on many occasions. She's protected. She's been an advocate for stopping trafficking. She's been an advocate for protecting rape victims, you know, and making sure that they have proper testing and proper DNA test. So at the end of the day,
backlogs of rape kits in the state of California, if you look at what she cleared in every single county in this gigantic state, I think that, and also that is something that disproportionately affects Black and brown women.
Yep. Another thing that
hit the worst,
for that I was affected when I lived in California. She won a $25 billion settlement for California homeowners by the, you know, that were hit by the foreclosure crisis. I was one of them. And it was ridiculous what the banks were doing out there. She protected the Affordable Health Care Act. She was a proponent of marriage equality. There's a lot of things that she's done, and they want to constantly define her by the crime bill. And I just think that's just not fair.
My friends, I say to you, to everyone who supported other candidates in the primary, and to those who may have voted for Donald Trump in the last election, the future of our democracy is at stake. The future of our economy is at stake. The future of our planet is at stake. We must come together, defeat Donald Trump, and elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as our next president and vice president. My friends, the price of failure is just too great to imagine. Thank you.
So were you guys inspired by Bernie Sanders?
Bernie is very lit. It's quite interesting that at his age 79, Bernie is, or 78, he stays very, very lit and very woke and very militant, which is quite fascinating. But what I love about Bernie in this moment that we're in right now, again, doubling down on the urgency of what we need to do. Listen, I believe in voting, for presidents. And I believe there's always, there's a time to vote a president I believe in voting for presidents like, campaigning. But I believe there's a time to vote someone in office. But then there's also a time to vote someone out. And I think this is one of those times where we have to come together collectively to try to get someone out of office. And I know, a lot of people are, well, it's the lesser of two evils, but I mean, really, is it the lesser of two evils, based on what we've been dealing with? I mean, what do you guys think about that whole lesser of two evils, ideology? What do you think about that?
It's nails on a chalkboard to me when I hear people trying to make them very similar, and I'm like, they're not similar. And it's whenever you're up for the big ticket, right, for the presidential bid, that's where.
All right, we have to go back to the convention. I'm so sorry, Claudia. Michelle Obama, the reason we're all here, right?
Oh,
Michelle Obama is.
Okay, come on, Michelle.
I'll start it for Michelle.
Okay.
Lady Michelle Obama. Good evening, everyone. It's a hard time, and everyone's feeling it in different ways. And I know a lot of folks are reluctant to tune into a political convention right now, or to politics in general. Believe me, I get that. But I am here tonight because I love this country with all my heart. And it pains me to see so many people hurting. I've met so many of you. I've heard your stories. And through you, I have seen this country's promise. And thanks to so many who came before me, thanks to their toil and sweat and blood, I've been able to live that promise myself. That's the story of America. All those folks who sacrificed and overcame so much in their own times because they wanted something more, something better for their kids. There's a lot of beauty in that story. There's a lot of pain in it too. A lot of struggle and injustice and work left to do. And who we choose as our president in this election will determine whether or not we honor that struggle and chip away at that injustice and keep alive the very possibility of finishing that work. I am one of a handful of people living today who have seen firsthand the immense weight and awesome power of the presidency. And let me once again tell you this: the job is hard. It requires clear-headed judgment, a mastery of complex and competing issues, a devotion to facts and history, a moral compass, and an ability to listen, and an abiding belief that each of the 330 million lives in this country has meaning and worth. A president's words have the power to move markets. They can start wars or broker peace. They can summon our better angels or awaken our worst instincts. You simply cannot fake your way through this job. As I've said before, being president doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you are. Well, a presidential election can reveal who we are too. And 4 years ago, too many people chose to believe that their votes didn't matter. Maybe they were fed up. Maybe they thought the outcome wouldn't be close. Maybe the barriers felt too steep, whatever the reason. In the end, those choices sent someone to the Oval Office who lost the national popular vote by nearly 3 million votes. In one of the states that determined the outcome, the winning margin averaged out to just 2 votes per precinct. 2 votes. And we've all been living with the consequences. When my husband left office with Joe Biden at his side, we had a record-breaking stretch of job creation. We'd secured the right to health care for 20 million people. We were respected around the world, rallying our allies to confront climate change. And our leaders had worked hand in hand with scientists to help prevent an Ebola outbreak from becoming a global pandemic. 4 years later, the state of this nation is very different. More than 150,000 people have died, and our economy is in shambles because of a virus that this president downplayed for too long. It has left millions of people jobless. Too many have lost their health care. Too many are struggling to take care of basic necessities like food and rent. Too many communities have been left in the lurch to grapple with whether and how to open our schools safely. Internationally, we've turned our back, not just on agreements forged by my husband, but on alliances championed by presidents like Reagan and Eisenhower. And here at home, as George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and a never-ending list of innocent people of color continue to be murdered, stating the simple fact that a Black life matters is still met with derision from the nation's highest office. Because whenever we look to this White House for some leadership or consolation or any semblance of steadiness, what we get instead is chaos, division, and a total and utter lack of empathy. Empathy, that's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. The ability to walk in someone else's shoes. The recognition that someone else's experience has value too. Most of us practice this without a second thought. If we see someone suffering or struggling, we don't stand in judgment, we reach out, because there, but for the grace of God, go I. It is not a hard concept to grasp. It's what we teach our children. Unlike so many of you, Barack and I have tried our best to instill in our girls a strong moral foundation to carry forward the values that our parents and grandparents poured into us. But right now, kids in this country are seeing what happens when we stop requiring empathy of one another. They're looking around wondering if we've been lying to them this whole time about who we are and what we truly value. They see people shouting in grocery stores, unwilling to wear a mask to keep us all safe. They see people calling the police on folks minding their own business just because of the color of their skin. They see an entitlement that says only certain people belong here, that greed is good and winning is everything, because as long as you come out on top, it doesn't matter what happens to everyone else. And they see what happens when that lack of empathy is ginned up into outright disdain. They see our leaders labeling fellow citizens enemies of the state while emboldening torch-bearing white supremacists. They watch in horror as children are torn from their families and thrown into cages, and pepper spray and rubber bullets are used on peaceful protesters for a photo op. Sadly, this is the America that is on display for the next generation. A nation that's underperforming not simply on matters of policy, but on matters of character. And that's not just disappointing, it's downright infuriating. Because I know the goodness and the grace that is out there in households and neighborhoods all across this nation. And I know that regardless of our race, age, religion, or politics, when we close out the noise and the fear and truly open our hearts, We know that what's going on in this country is just not right. This is not who we want to be. So what do we do now? What's our strategy? Over the past 4 years, a lot of people have asked me, when others are going so low, does going high still really work? My answer, going high is the only thing that works. Because when we go low, when we use those same tactics of degrading and dehumanizing others, we just become part of the ugly noise that's drowning out everything else. We degrade ourselves. We degrade the very causes for which we fight. But let's be clear. Going high does not mean putting on a smile and saying nice things when confronted by viciousness and cruelty. Going high means taking the harder path. It means scraping and clawing our way to that mountaintop. Going high means standing fierce against hatred while remembering that we are one nation under God. And if we want to survive, we've got to find a way to live together and work together across our differences. And going high means unlocking the shackles of lies and mistrust with the only thing that can truly set us free, the cold, hard truth. So let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is. Now, I understand that my message won't be heard by some people. We live in a nation that is deeply divided, and I am a Black woman speaking at the Democratic Convention. But enough of you know me by now. You know that I tell you exactly what I'm feeling. You know I hate politics, but you also know that I care about this nation. You know how much I care about all of our children. So if you take one thing from my words tonight, it is this. If you think things cannot possibly get worse, trust me, they can and they will if we don't make a change in this election. If we have any hope of ending this chaos, we have got to vote for Joe Biden like our lives depend on it. I know Joe. He is a profoundly decent man, guided by faith. He was a terrific vice president. He knows what it takes to rescue an economy, beat back a pandemic, and lead our country. And he listens. He will tell the truth and trust science. He will make smart plans and manage a good team. And he will govern as someone who's lived a life that the rest of us can recognize. When he was a kid, Joe's father lost his job. When he was a young senator, Joe lost his wife and his baby daughter. And when he was vice president, he lost his beloved son. So Joe knows the anguish of sitting at a table with an empty chair, which is why he gives his time so freely to grieving parents. Joe knows what it's like to struggle, which is why he gives his personal phone number to kids overcoming a stutter of their own. His life is a testament to getting back up. And he is going to channel that same grit and passion to pick us all up, to help us heal and guide us forward. Now, Joe is not perfect, and he'd be the first to tell you that. But there is no perfect candidate, no perfect president. And his ability to learn and grow, we find in that the kind of humility and maturity that so many of us yearn for right now. Because Joe Biden has served this nation his entire life without ever losing sight of who he is, But more than that, he has never lost sight of who we are, all of us. Joe Biden wants all of our kids to go to a good school, see a doctor when they're sick, live on a healthy planet. And he's got plans to make all of that happen. Joe Biden wants all of our kids, no matter what they look like, to be able to walk out the door without worrying about being harassed or arrested or killed. He wants all of our kids to be able to go to a movie or a math class without being afraid of getting shot. He wants all our kids to grow up with leaders who won't just serve themselves and their wealthy peers, but will provide a safety net for people facing hard times. And if we want a chance to pursue any of these goals, any of these most basic requirements for a functioning society, we have to vote for Joe Biden in numbers that cannot be ignored. Because right now, folks who know they cannot win fair and square at the ballot box are doing everything they can to stop us from voting. They're closing down polling places in minority neighborhoods. They're purging voter rolls. They're sending people out to intimidate voters, and they're lying about the security of our ballots. These tactics are not new, but this is not the time to withhold our votes in protest or play games with candidates who have no chance of winning. We have got to vote like we did in 2008 and 2012. We've got to show up with the same level of passion and hope for Joe Biden. We've got to vote early, in person if we can. We've got to request our mail-in ballots right now, tonight, and send them back immediately. And follow up to make sure they're received. And then make sure our friends and families do the same. We have got to grab our comfortable shoes, put on our masks, pack a brown bag dinner, and maybe breakfast too, because we've got to be willing to stand in line all night if we have to. Look, we have already sacrificed so much this year. So many of you are already going that extra mile. Even when you're exhausted, you're mustering up unimaginable courage to put on those scrubs and give our loved ones a fighting chance. Even when you're anxious, you're delivering those packages, stocking those shelves, and doing all that essential work so that all of us can keep moving forward. Even when it all feels so overwhelming, working parents are somehow piecing it all together without childcare. Teachers are getting creative so that our kids can still learn and grow. Our young people are desperately fighting to pursue their dreams. And when the horrors of systemic racism shook our country and our consciences, millions of Americans of every age, every background rose up to march for each other, crying out for justice and progress. This is who we still are. Compassionate, resilient, decent people whose fortunes are bound up with one another. And it is well past time for our leaders to once again reflect our truth. So it is up to us to add our voices and our votes to the chorus of history, echoing heroes like John Lewis, who said, "When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something." That is the truest form of empathy. Not just feeling, but doing. Not just for ourselves or our kids, but for everyone, for all our kids. And if we want to keep the possibility of progress alive in our time, if we want to be able to look our children in the eye after this election, we have got to reassert our place in American history. And we have got to do everything we can to elect my friend Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. Thank you all. God bless.
Michelle Obama's message, vote for Joe Biden like our lives depend on it. How'd she do?
Drops the mic. Nobody can really come at. I don't know how you can follow her. She's the greatest.
You can't. And Donald Trump could never. It just made me think about the end of next week when Donald Trump has his, convention and him trying to connect and emote with the country. I just can't see him doing that. And this is just day one. So we miss her. We love to hear from her. We trust her. We believe her. She endorses fully Joe Biden. She says we trust him and he's a decent man. And right now we need a decent man.
Yeah. And we need a trusted voice. And she just gave that.
A jam-packed first day. Michelle Obama, Bernie Sanders, a conversation on racial justice, a push to get Republicans to vote for Joe Biden. A big day. We'll see how voters feel after today. But Tammy Mack is up next.
See y'all back here tomorrow, ladies.